My name is DC Marshall, and I am the CEO at Diverse and Engage, where we speak three languages: leadership development, workplace culture, and diversity and inclusion. And, our big why is we really want to be part of creating a world to help people better connect, communicate, and respect unique differences. Beyond that, I have the pleasure of being the curator of an amazing initiative called Diversity on the Hill, getting leaders to engage with their local officials and increasing the diversity on Capitol Hill, as well as founder of D&I Honors, where Congress meets culture, inclusion, and belonging, an initiative that we started at 2019 Congressional Black Caucus, and really looking forward to that. Other big things that we are working on is NADI and ADI, the International Association of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. So I'm excited to be here today. The backstory is prior to launching my company that was originally Raise the Bar. It was a coaching, training, and development practice. Prior to that, I worked on Wall Street. I trained $1 million producers on Wall Street. I worked for top financial services firms. And my background is training and development by trade. So I'm not Series 7 or 63 licensed, but my license, if you will, is in leadership development. My work is really in understanding what makes successful leaders successful. And so that's really my backstory, MNOD, which is Management Organizational Development. But I started this company years ago, Raise the Bar, coaching, training, and development. I'm a ICF certified coach. One of the things that we did way back when is we launched it was called Women Raising the Bar. It was an event specifically for women, and it was to support professional development. That event really for our corporate partners became a sourcing, diversity sourcing at the time. So diversity recruiting and such. And we did that for a number of years. And then 3 years ago, I rebranded, restructured, and relaunched the company. So Raise the Bar became Diverse and Engaged. And that's really how we came to be. It was part of me looking at the brand to better communicate who we are as diversity and inclusion thought leaders, and the work that we have been doing for some years. We have been already doing the work of diverse recruiting for quality passive job candidates. We had already been tracking some of the challenges in corporate workspaces for our clients who were women of color. We had already been doing that. And so that's really what got us here to Diverse and Engage. So we really anchor, D&I is at the 3.0 level right now. So we are in Diversity and Inclusion 3.0. And I will share how it evolved. I mean, it was way back when we were talking about equal opportunity employment. That's really the genesis and sort of the outgrowth of what we now see as diversity and inclusion. It's not a buzzword. It was really, practice, policy, and a way to create equal opportunities for people. And so that was the D&I, at the beginning. And then how it has evolved over the years is, a focus at times on one dimension of diversity. And so I'll give you before D&I 3.0, or let's just say before May of 2020, diversity and inclusion for a lot of sectors or I should say industry, folks were holding a funeral service, a memorial service for the death of diversity. And what I mean by that is the language and the lens was shifting, where diversity and inclusion was no longer diversity and inclusion. It was inclusion and diversity, if diversity at all. It became culture. It became about belonging and all of these nice buzzwords that sound really nice. And the initiatives are, to some extent, they're great and they're good, but what happened? You see removing diversity. And whenever you remove the language of a thing or the labeling of a thing, you're removing the thing. And so that's what was happening prior to May of 2020. What was also happening and what we captured in our emerging trends and hot topics in D&I, gender diversity was D&I 2.0, right? It had evolved from LGBTQ being a thing or Latina or Latinos or Latinx population at one point, to gender diversity. And that was as a result of hashtag Me Too. So hashtag Me Too created opportunities, but largely for women, but they were white women largely. And so how D&I has evolved, if you're following the story, from, equal opportunity employment to the beginnings of diversity, to then really dimensions of diversity only focusing on one when all of us need the focus, right? And then to right now we're in D&I 3.0. And how we got here is we entered and we are amid a global reckoning of racism against Black people in the United States. It's global because people around the globe protested, when George Floyd, God rest his soul, was murdered. And so we're at D&I 3.0. And what does that look like? A lot of focus on Black people. Black people are in. Why? Because corporations, George Floyd was murdered on the 25th. By the 27th or by that Friday of that week, corporations begin releasing statements of, Black Lives Matter and, racism exists and it does exist. And, it lives in corporate America. Well, we are anti-racist. And they begin writing big checks and such. And so, with that, they doubled back and doubled down on diversity, where at the beginning of the pandemic, D&I, chiefs of D&I, of diversity and inclusion, were losing their jobs, right? And so to sort of wrap up my statement here is D&I has evolved in terms of focus, of dimensions, going from gender diversity, because so many companies, when they would talk about diversity before George Floyd was murdered, they were really talking about gender diversity because that was a comfortable place to go. But now a lot of focus on Black talent, Black and Latinx, a lot of initiatives around funding Black and Latinx, a lot of initiatives on and a lot of job opportunities for diversity folks right now. And so that has sort of been the evolution of diversity and inclusion. And largely, we don't have enough time to talk about how there's new levels of accountability, and those accountability or the levels of accountability are coming through Congress, right? 118th Congress, largest and most diverse, began to shift the narrative and by applying pressure to large, big banks and such. And so we don't have enough time here, but whenever you want to have me back, I'd be glad to talk about, some of the other sort of drivers of D&I 3.0, some of the accountability, what corporations are doing, what they need to do to avoid some of the painful things that we have been seeing with big banks and tech. So there's a lot going on with diversity and inclusion, and a lot to learn, even now. To reinvent yourself in your career, or let's just say to reinvent or pursue D&I, because I know a lot of people are interested, and I'll speak to the latter before the former. I think for folks who are really interested in diversity and inclusion, it's important to lean in where you are. So begin the work of leaning in where you are. And what I mean by that is start your work without the title and without the position. So wherever you are, look around the room and see, what's wrong with this, or what's right with this? And is this a place that feels like it would be welcoming for all? And so I think a lot of people miss the opportunity to lean in where you are, challenge where you are. If you know that you are in spaces that are not diverse, or they are not places that feel like they were preparing for you and they are prepared for you, lean in raise your voice there, be part of the solution there, and be okay with being the call out, like holding up a mirror to say, I'd really like to have a conversation. I've noticed something here, and I'm curious if you all have noticed, and here is what I'd like to share in terms of an observation about this place. So I think make the observation, be okay with the call out, but here's what I think folks need to do with regard to D&I is be able to present the business case, right? And so in order to sell or enroll people in work in terms of diversity and inclusion, you have to know sort of how to enroll, how to sell it, and to present the business case. And a lot of people don't know how to tap in or how to really speak to people who are not of color, right? So whether it is, it's the right thing to do, obviously, right? It's the right thing to do to diversify, but not everybody gets it that it's the right thing to do. And if you're talking to business people who don't look like you or I, you have to sell it. What's the business case, right? Tie it to the bottom line. You can also tie it to there's new levels of accountability. And for anybody who needs to know more about that, certainly reach out.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment below, and share. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content.